this is Alan from Alpus Group Project Management, talking to you today about 20 key factors for project success. Key factor 12, building information management and modelling. Alpus recommends that the following 20 key factors are addressed to ensure project success. And we've been through 11 of these key factors, and we're on factor 12 at the moment, which is building information management and modelling. You recall that key factor 1 was a clear and concise brief for the project or programme that defines the scope of works, the fundamental design parameters, the employer's or owner's requirements such as budget, cost, programme, time, schedule, specific operational performance requirements and quality requirements. The project or programme brief should reflect the vision of the sponsor of the project or programme. You remember we discussed the available development options for any particular site, the category of use that may exist on the site, and that you need to identify what may be in demand in your particular area with regard to developing something that will be in demand, but you also need to check with the local planning authority policy whether they will support such a development in that area, whether the area is zoned for that particular type of requirement, whether it's for employment purposes or residential purposes. Taking the extreme, obviously you're not going to get planning permission to develop a factory, however profitable it may be, in the middle of a residential area. Similarly, you may not be able to get a planning permission for a hotel to be developed in such an area. So you evaluate the options that are available on your site, and you will need to seek outline or detailed planning permission for your development unless you have permitted development rights under the Town and Country Planning Order 2015. Irrespective of whether you've got planning permission or not, you do need to have building control permission for all of the works to be carried out in accordance with the building regulations, which is a legal requirement for all construction works in the UK. The risks of alternative options need to be evaluated so that the risk of whether you get planning permission is taken into consideration. So having weighed up all your options, you decide on a strategy to proceed. If, for example, you're looking at a residential development, you may need to take into account affordable housing under the local authority's affordable housing policy if there are more than 10 residential units. This figure varies by the local authority. Alternatively, if you've got permitted development rights, you don't need to take account of the planning process, and this reduces the risk for the development significantly. Once you know what you're going to do, you can finalise your brief for your designers and contractors. Risk assessment and contingency is key factor 2. So you've decided on the brief for your scheme, the scope of works, the likely outcome subject to planning permission. You do a risk assessment on all of the risks that you have to do with your site. Some of them will be physical risks associated with the site, for instance, ground conditions. Other risks will be related to the planning process. So you list and evaluate for time and cost all of the risks, and you come up with a contingency figure which reflects the level of risk for the project. So key factor 3 is the funding. You go through the detailed breakdown of your costs associated with the job, the acquisition costs, survey fees, solicitors' fees, sales duty, land tax, VAT, planning consultants' costs, architectural feasibility study, your design and management costs, various consultants, construction costs, main contractor or specialist trade contractors if you're doing a construction management approach. You summarise your time and cost risks, then you allocate a contingency sum that reflects the risks involved in the job, and you ensure that you have funding to reflect the risks that are likely on this job. So you may or may not draw down on this money, but you need to have the provision there in case you need it. Key factor 4, the site must be available and accessible, especially when you get to construction stage. So you must have legal ownership of the site, or alternatively legal permission to develop the site from the owner. For the contractor to be able to start work, you must give him possession of the site. So the site must have access. He's got to be able to get plant and machinery and materials and labour to the site. Phased access is possible, but you need to ensure that if you're giving a phased access to a contractor, that you can actually meet the date that you commit to in the contract for granting access. If you don't do that, then you will likely incur claims from the contractor for associated costs of delays. There are a couple of case studies that are relevant to this. On the Crescent Development project in Baku, Azerbaijan, land needed for the site was reclaimed from the sea. The area was in use by the Baku Port Authority, so this involved a decanting of the port operations to another area before the port area could be developed and the land reclaimed. And a second incidence is the Balkans Railway project, where the client failed to secure all the necessary land for the railway project, the expropriation of the land, which resulted in contractor claims for delay because he couldn't legally go onto the site that he was required to go on to construct. Key factor 5, statutory permissions, planning permission. You don't need legal ownership of the site in order to seek planning permission for the development. You can choose to take out an option to purchase the site, subject to planning permission being granted, which gives you the right to buy the site at a predetermined price, but you're not obliged to purchase the site. So if your planning approval comes back not quite how you envisaged, or you change your plans, you can decide not to take up that option. Once you submit your planning application to the local authority, they must respond within 56 days of their acknowledgement, and you will then receive either an acceptance or a refusal, or your acceptance may be conditional on certain conditions being fulfilled. So in certain circumstances you don't need planning permission for the development where there are permitted development rights, but you need to ensure that you get these correctly assessed by a suitably qualified planning consultant who knows the current permitted development rights rules, because some of them are being phased out and others are coming in to being, some of them coming in on the 1st of August 2021. So you've got various permitted development rights, but they're very specific regarding the sort of buildings that you can develop, and you need to look at each case specifically to check whether it's applicable. If the permitted development right isn't applicable, you'll need to go for planning permission, and this is the risk that you run, which could impact on your bottom line for the project. Key factor 6, agreements with neighbours. Many properties, particularly those in congested suburban areas, have neighbours that need to be considered. You may need a party wall award granted under the Party Wall Act, which protects your neighbours and your own rights when agreeing work to be carried out, and a party wall condition. So basically between your site and your neighbour's site there's a boundary, and there needs to be an agreement about works that you are responsible to carry out, so that there's no interference with or undermining or diminishing of your neighbour's rights. Also there may be way leaves on the site allowing certain parties access across your land for different purposes. Sewers, electrical cables, gas mains, telephone communication cables, water main supplies, rights of access for maintenance such as for electrical substations. You may have neighbouring mainline rail or tube lines, underground lines, and in which case you have to carry out certain protection works, or you may be restricted in your method of execution of the work if you're carrying out work adjacent to the railway. There are very strict safety regulations regarding potential for collapse of piling rigs or cranes onto the railway, and basically you'll need to get approval from the relevant authority, whether it's Network Rail or Transport for London, London Underground, for your method of execution. This can be an additional cost, so you need to have an agreement with these parties, and you will end up paying for the cost of their resources to review and approve your method statements and designs. This may be done directly with them or through their appointed representatives. Key factor 7, protection or diversion of utilities. So having identified the particular services that there may be on the site, you need to fully survey the positions of all these services and utilities. Some of the information may be available from the relevant statutory utility companies, but you may find that there are other services on the site that are not actually recorded. You are responsible for carrying out the survey and ensuring that the services are safely dealt with. In some cases where the building that may exist on the site is being demolished, you can cut these services off and discontinue them. In other cases, protection measures may need to be put in place to prevent damage to those services, particularly sewers that are very vulnerable to damage. Alternatively, diversion of some services may be required, for which time will be needed, and clearly there are some services that will be very difficult to divert. For example, sewers, main gas mains, main water mains. You'll need to design around these in some cases. Key factor 8, advanced or enabling works. In some cases, the required services, diversions or other preliminary works can be carried out as an advanced or enabling works package. For example, demolition of existing buildings and services diversions could be advanced works. Additionally, diversion of utilities could be carried out as part of the advanced works scope. And while you're doing the advanced works packages, which can take sometimes weeks, sometimes months to complete, then you can be completing the design for the main project. Key factor 9, your contracting strategy. You need to decide what is the most appropriate contracting strategy for your project to be executed. Will you, as the employer or owner, undertake the detailed designs, or will you engage a contractor on a design and build basis? Will you carry out some of the works as an advanced or enabling works package? And you need to decide on the relevant contracting strategy and the release dates for all of the designs to enable construction to take place. If there are certain items which are the subject of customer choice or selection, then you need to decide on those options and when they must be decided upon. So this is kitchen choices or bathroom selection, finishes like tiling, flooring, and so on. You need to have a time schedule which reflects the dates for all these decisions, and you need to manage the relevant parties to make those decisions. It's all part of your contracting strategy, and ensuring that your contracting strategy allows you to deliver the project on time. So you may do this using a main contractor, in which case either he prepares the designs if it's a design and build contract, or you need to ensure that the designs are provided to him. Or alternatively, you can employ a construction manager rather than a main contractor, in which case the contracts need to be formulated between you as the employer and the trade contractors. So there's no main contractor in this model. Key factor 10, a complete and buildable design. You need to decide what is the most appropriate contracting strategy, as we mentioned, and if you are undertaking the designs, you need to appoint a design team, and that team needs to have a leader, which is usually the architect, and he needs to coordinate the designs for all of the consultants and ensure that they're buildable for issue to the contractor. If you employ a contractor on a design and build basis, then you're basically offsetting that risk, because the contractor becomes responsible for the buildability of the design. But what you do need to have is a preliminary design which will show the fundamental requirements that the contractor needs to conform to, and usually you'll have a specification, at least an outline specification of what your expectations are for specification. Additionally, advanced or enabling works packages may need designs as well, designs for diversion of services, designs for temporary works. All of this needs to be addressed through consultants, and you need to ensure that there's a clear responsibility matrix, so there's no gap between the work of the different consultants and contractors. You need to manage the interfaces, basically. If there are some items that are subject to customer choice or selection, you need to make sure that these design selections are made at the appropriate time, and the decisions are made in a timely way so as not to delay the procurement of the works. Obviously, you need to recognise that once somebody selects a particular item, whether it's a kitchen or a bathroom or tiling, there is a procurement period. The material isn't just immediately available on site because somebody chooses it. There needs to be a stock of these materials, and for which somebody needs to place the orders. So there's a whole procurement process that contractors normally carry out, which requires time, and a process for placing orders and delivery, process for checking of materials before they're delivered to site to ensure they're correct. So you need to take account of all this. You can't leave all the client decisions to the very last minute and expect that your contractor is going to miraculously deliver the project on time. Quality assurance and control. So having decided on your contracting strategy, if you are engaging a design and build contractor, you need to ensure that he has in place the appropriate ISO qualifications, and he basically has the systems and processes to carry out quality assurance and quality control to the right level. There needs to be quality assurance and control on designs as well, which is fine if you've got a design and build contract, but if you have your own designers who you are engaging, then you need to ensure that you have a quality assurance and quality control process in place for those designs. Otherwise, you run the risk that you issue designs to the contractor that may not be buildable, that they need to be changed, in which case there may be delays to the process of the work. So it's better to set these systems up in advance and make sure that you know which designers are responsible for which activities, and ensure that there's a sign-off process of the designs before they're issued to the contractor. In some cases, if you employ a construction manager, then the construction manager will carry out such a review, but nevertheless you need to have a process in place. Key factor 12, building information management and modelling. This is something which is becoming more and more common, and you need to ensure that you have the right strategy if it's appropriate. If you're engaging a design and build contractor, it may be that you don't need a BIM strategy as a client. On the other hand, you may have operational requirements and maintenance which would make it beneficial for you to have a BIM strategy, so that you inherit all of the building information management and modelling information for your operators and your maintenance, future maintenance of the building. So BIM enables information to be shared between all the parties, including the client and the end user or operator, as well as the design team and the contractors, and it should enable a more efficient design to be developed for the ultimate benefit of the client and the end user. If you want to know anything more about these subjects, or you have a project in mind, then please give us a call on +44 7539 141257. I've got Skype, WhatsApp and FaceTime on that number. We're present in Hindhead in the UK or in Slovenia, and you can book a 30-minute exploratory call with me. That's Alan. Go to calendly.com/AlanJE, or if you want a free contracts checklist, you can go to the tiny URL link in the description below, or if you're interested in property development training, go to the second tiny URL link and look at our options for property development training. That's all for this video, so look forward to seeing you in the next video. Cheers.